Talk, the show that talks about sports and other topics relatable to sports fans. Is joining me this week in Pennsylvania is Maryland man Scott Landa.
Thank you. Welcome. Well, not me. Welcome back. Well, thank you for having me back.
Yes, Scott. Well, first off, I wanted to say we didn't have a show last week because our producer Charles Laloma's grandmother passed away. So we want to send our love and prayers to to his family and him, who's back here working his magic back there. Um, Scott, we're gonna let's start off on what you're wearing. So, what's up with the Maryland stuff? How they doing right now? What's going on?
Well, it's well. Thank you for that. Too early to tell, but when people think of college football, they're not really Maryland is not really on the forefront of most people's conversations. I doubt we will be in the talk for a playoff spot. That being said, the program had some rebuilding to do. I don't know if you remember hearing about 4 or 5 years ago, they were involved in a big scandal when a player died during practice. Very tragic, yes. But they basically cleaned out the entire program, head coach, whatnot. So it's been a rough road back, and we've got a very good team this year. Again, by Maryland standards, I don't see them, competing with Alabama anytime soon. But it's definitely some exciting times. They beat West Virginia. Then they played, I forgot, I think Howard. That's one of those hate games. And then they beat Illinois, not the strongest of opponents, but it's a conference game. So they've got one more week game coming up this week. Should be 4-0, no problem. And then they get into the real things. And the more importantly, the rest of the conference is not that strong. Ohio State, is one of those teams that you do talk about on the national level, but they're definitely beatable. They're probably out of the national title race already, so they're beatable. Michigan is good, but also beatable. So dare I say, Maryland could actually compete for the Big Ten title. Of course, that would require beating those teams. But, since they've been in the conference 10 years, this is probably the best chance they've had to beat either of those teams. So, who knows? I could be wrong. When they get down to the real teams, they could start getting crushed as usual. But for now, I'm optimistic, and I can't wait. It's an exciting season.
Yeah, no, Penn State's off to a strong start for sure. So that's about all I know for college football right now. Not a big aficionado, but as the weeks go by, we'll definitely get more into the college football ranks. But for right now, we're on the last week before October. You know what that means? That means the baseball season's winding down. That means what everybody's done for 162 games is going to be the end result coming in the next 11 days. Then the season's going to wrap up, and then we get into our wild card race, our wild card games to see who claims the official last playoff spots and moving forward into the first round. So we've had some interesting developments over the past couple of weeks. The AL East is consistently with Tampa Bay. Looks like they're running away with it. They're 6 games up on Boston, and is the portion of pretty much everybody's schedule where they're facing divisional rivals. This is one area where Tampa Bay hasn't officially closed the playoff spot. They've actually hit a couple bumps in the road. They're 9-12 this month, so they're not as formidable as they have been earlier this season. But they've worked they worked hard, and they have this cushion going on, and it looks like they'll take the AL East title within the next couple of days. But we have the Red Sox and the Yankees who start I'm talking about a huge 3-game set over the weekend right now. And then we have the pesky Blue Jays, who are just not going away. They are the Red Sox are 6 games behind the Rays. The Yankees are 2 games behind them, and the Rays are the Blue Jays are a half game behind the New York Yankees. What do you make of this division race right here?
Yeah, this got very, very good. As you mentioned, Tampa was pulling away with it. They've kind of cooled off a little bit, but I think they were giving themselves enough of a lead. Yeah, it's down to 6, but the Red Sox had to win 7 in a row just to get it to that. So now those teams are going to be playing each other. So you could more or less close the book on the division. With that being said, you got a phenomenal 3-team race: the Red Sox, Yankees, and Blue Jays. And from a neutral observer, just a sports fan, Red Sox Yankees is everything. The 2003 series, the 2004 series, 2018. So they're going to play a series this weekend that's basically a playoff series. It should be exciting. And Toronto, they had an amazing run to get into that race as well. Now, see, the teams just flip flop last night, as a matter of fact, but there's a half game separating them. And it looked like the Red Sox were falling off because they had a very not mediocre. They were terrible after the All-Star break, but they've all of a sudden put their foot back on the gas at exactly the right time. So this is going to be, I know you're excited as a Yankee fan, and just, I'll be watching some of those games, absolutely, because, the Mets season was ended, 3 calls ago. But Yankees Red Sox will be very, very interesting. It's going to be a great last 2 weeks of the season for that race and a few others, definitely.
Yeah, we'll definitely stop by there. There's a lot of, as far as local news goes. So the Yankees' last 9 games are going to be 3 against Boston, 3 against the Blue Jays, and then they finish up 3 against the Rays. So if you look at it, they actually control their own destiny on whether they're going to make it to the playoffs or not. Now, the big story is what happens if they don't make the playoffs, and then what happens if they end up losing the wild card game, or even to a deeper extent if they end up getting bumped in the first round. But first things first, let's see, because it's very much in the air right now if they're actually even going to make the playoffs or not. So what happens to Aaron Boone at any point if they don't make the playoffs or if they lose in the wild card game?
I think you got to fire him regardless. I've never put much stock in American League managers. I mean, there's always the whole, American League versus National League thing. Maybe I'm, being a Mets fan, maybe I have some bias there. But, you don't – the decisions are basically – when a pitcher gets tired, you take him out. You don't have to worry about things like, pitcher batting, but when do you take him out? You don't have to add that. There's a lot less strategy involved. So that being said, the Yankees definitely have the roster where they should not be in this position at this point. And I know that Yankee fans hate this guy. And somebody I saw, one of the best comments that I've seen was in 2003, if he strikes out instead of hitting that home run, he's not even – you haven't heard his name since. He would not be the manager of this team. That's actually a pretty good point. I think they shouldn't even be in this position. And if they do happen to make it and make an early exit, I think you got to replace him because he's clearly not – like I said, it doesn't take much, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it doesn't take much to be an American League manager. And I think he's definitely underachieving. And I know Yankee fans, I know that your bullpen, your pitching could use some work, but Yankee fans are adamantly hate this guy as a manager anyway. Of course, his legacy as a player is cemented for good, but I think you got to get rid of him.
I think it's a very tough subject to get into. I think as far as him hitting that homer and then ended up being the Yankee manager, I think a lot of where his notoriety came out and like his knowledge came to the forefront was his TV work, and I think he was an exceptional TV analyst. And it seems like when they get the TV analysts and like they're always saying like what's the best move to make and things like that. I guess it would be different. Seeing how it is when you don't have like a leg in the race, and then when you actually have to make those decisions, and that's what we're seeing right now. I don't think we're seeing the same Aaron Boone that we saw, as a TV analyst with pretty much no stress, just saying, oh yeah, being the Monday morning quarterback. Oh, they should do this, and it's just that's the black and white of it. I think they've definitely underachieved as a team, and I think if they don't make it to the World Series, then the Yankees are going to have a new manager next season. I think because from all the progressions and getting a couple years ago they were up 3-2 going into Houston and possibly going into the World Series. So you're thinking that the Yankees are taking these steps to get to the World Series and then eventually win the World Series. And right now, as it stands today and pretty much all season, they really haven't been close aside from the whole 13-game winning streak, which seems like forever ago at this point. I don't see Aaron Boone coming back unless they actually do make it to the World Series. If they end up making it to the World Series and losing, then it's up in the air. But anything short of that, and he's not coming back. And the biggest question will be if it's a package deal between Brian Cashman, the general manager of the New York Yankees, and Aaron Boone. 2 years ago we were praising. Everybody was praising Brian Cashman and calling him one of the executives of the year, nominations and things like that for all the work that he did to get all these different moving parts, and how he ended up just getting a starting third baseman in Gio Urshela for cash, and like trading away Chapman and then getting Gleyber Torres and then getting Chapman back. It seemed like there was nothing he could do wrong, and then now at this point. It's a very flawed roster, especially in the bullpen area, and it seems like they have too much at first base because now you can't even get a Luke Voit, who was the player of the week, and then it was benched the whole next week because Anthony Rizzo was there, and they acquired Rizzo because Voit was hurt, and you didn't know exactly if he was going to come back or not, and then he ends up coming back, and he goes on a tear, but then he has to sit down a bunch. It's a big mess, and it's very easy for everybody to sit at home and second guess the moves that are made, but somebody's got to pull the trigger. So, and somebody also has to be the fall guy, unfortunately. So that's what ends up happening when the success doesn't come through. So that's my take on it. Looking at it from an objective standpoint, if he doesn't make the World Series, then the Yankees will be looking for a new manager in the offseason.
Yep. I agree 100%.
As far as Boston goes, a lot of how they've ended up, how they've put themselves in a power position right now is the return of Chris Sale. They were missing Chris Sale for the better part of a year and a half, and then he ends up coming in. He's 5-0 right now, looking very much like the top-notch thoroughbred starter that we all know him to be, and he's definitely help take Boston to the next level. And all of these three teams going for the wild card spot. You got the Red Sox sitting in the top wild card spot, 2 games above the Yankees, and then the Yankees and Blue Jays are neck and neck right now. All of them can hit, and it's all about who's going to be the pitcher that ends up giving up the X, Y, and Z amount of runs to lose the game. That's what it seems to be on a nightly basis. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And unfortunately, there's going to be one team that doesn't make the playoffs at all. But if realistically, there's going to be only one of these three teams that actually has a full series. So one team's going to lose it completely. One team's going to end up losing one game and be out of it. So it's only going to be one of these 3 powerhouse teams. And it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. So as far as the Central Division goes, we have the Chicago White Sox, who've been the first division for the first time since 2008. And in the West, in the AL West, we have the Astros, who are they haven't clinched the division yet, but they're 8 games up on Seattle, so it's pretty much any day now they will clinch the division and go back to the enemy seat going into the playoffs now. And Seattle and Oakland is battling, having the anything can happen scenario. Going into the wild card race, Seattle's 2.5 games back, and Oakland's 3.5 games back. So, any thoughts on the rest of the AL playoff picture?
Well, it's interesting to see Houston with 91 wins and about to make the playoffs, because I remember there was obviously so much so much hatred for them after their sign stealing incident, and then once they got caught, they were terrible, I believe, for the next year or so. But clearly, they've either found a way to hit without stealing signs, or they've just found a better way to not get caught.
Well,
Whatever the case, you got to give them credit for being back where they are, and let's not forget, we're talking about the wild card. Yeah, realistically speaking, it's going to come down between the Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays fighting for 3 teams, 2 spots. However, Seattle is right there. They're not going to win the division, but they've won 4 in a row to get themselves back to 2.5 out. And even Oakland is still hanging around. Yeah, they lost 3 in a row, not helping their cause much. But that's a 5-team race, really. You got to consider both Oakland and Seattle still in it. What's going to hurt them is that you got all these teams. Everybody's playing for the most part interdivisionally, and I don't have either of their schedules up in front of me, but I assume that you know what, I will put schedules up. I would assume they've got a series left against each other, and that will hurt their call.
Yeah, because it's not like if Seattle and Oakland needs, they'll need nights where the Red Sox, Yankees, and there'll be nights where the Red Sox, the Blue Jays, and the Yankees all need to lose in order for the Seattle and or Oakland to gain ground, and they're not going to be able to because one of the teams is going to win because everybody's facing each other. So that's definitely a good point on that end. All right, so and then as far as the playoff picture goes, if it holds right now, unless Tampa Bay completely collapses, there'll be it'll be the White Sox versus the Astros in the first round. Then it'll be whichever of the Red Sox, Yankees, and Blue Jays, whoever of the 2 or the 3 have the best record, they'll play a game, and then they'll automatically have to go play Tampa. So it's going to be a lot of familiarity there, and it's going to be a rough road for whoever ends up prevailing from those playoff rounds. All right, so we're gonna move on to the NL East right now. The Atlanta Braves are 80-70. This is easily the weakest division of all of baseball at this point. The Braves are 80-70. The Philadelphia Phillies are 3 games behind the Braves, and the New York Mets are 73-79. They're 8 games out. They're not mathematically eliminated yet, but really it's only a matter of time now until they're done. Did we lose Scott? All right, so we'll see. Hopefully we can get Scott back online. So we'll move on to the Central Division, where the Milwaukee Brewers have clinched the playoff spot. They haven't clinched the division yet because the hottest team in baseball right now is the St. Louis Cardinals. St. Louis Cardinals have won 11 in a row, and they are just clicking on all cylinders. Right now, those teams are playing as we speak, and when we were going on air, they were tied at 5, so not sure where they are at this point yet. Then we have the greatest division in Major League Baseball right now, where the San Francisco Giants are 1 win away from 100 wins on the season, and they're at 99-53. And the Los Angeles Dodgers are 97-55. They're 2 games behind. So you have the 2 strongest teams in the same division. The 2 strongest teams in all of baseball. They have the 2 best records in all of baseball. So whoever ends up winning this division will have an automatic seed, and then whoever loses, who is second place will be the first. They'll be the host city of the wild card game, and they'll face whoever's going on there. Scott, are you with us? Nothing? Okay. So all right. So we'll talk about the West right now, and the San Diego Padres have to be the biggest disappointment, I think, on the season for Major League Baseball, depending on what you think of, the Yankees being contenders. They're also up there since they're fighting for their playoff lives and not running away with the American League East. You could also throw them out there. But the San Diego Padres, right now, they're 76 and 75. They're 22 games behind the division leading San Francisco Giants, and right now they are 6 games back in the wild card. Now this is a team that last season they were fighting hard. They had the trade deadline. They were one of the teams that actually took it seriously last year, and they added bulk to try to overtake the Dodgers and make a long playoff run and eventually win the World Series. And then this year, it was like a fight between the Dodgers and the Padres on who could add the biggest names, and they were going back and forth, and making the key acquisitions here. It seemed like they were going tit for tat, like the old Red Sox Yankees days when they were just beefing up against each other, and really seemed like they would be the two teams in the race that were fighting for the NL West supremacy in all of baseball. But the San Francisco Giants, in my opinion, the biggest surprise of the MLB season, have taken that spot, and the San Diego Padres are just the biggest disappointment. At this point, it's almost like, what can you do? They've had a lot of injuries with a lot of the big name arms that they brought in, but at the end of the day, you can't make all those moves that you made, and make all these public statements saying how deep you're going to go into the playoffs, and then be only one game over 500, and then 6 games closest to the playoff spot. So, right now, we'll also talk about the NL East, because the Atlanta Braves and the Philadelphia Phillies, they're looking pretty good. As far as playoff seeding goes, this is going to be, for any team that comes out of this, is the only way they're going to get into the playoffs. The Philadelphia Phillies are 4.5 games away from the St. Louis Cardinals, and the New York Mets are 9.5 games out. So, very unfortunate season for New York Mets and their fans. I think that they're still building towards a winner in the future, but for Mets fans, there was a lot of optimism in the season. There was a lot of money getting thrown around and a lot of promises being made, and unfortunately, the team hasn't been able to uphold that. So in a couple of days, they'll be eliminated from the playoffs, and then everybody would just switch over to football, as we will. All right, so right now we have the NL, the NFL. We have the battle. We have the undefeated Carolina Panthers visiting the Houston Texans tonight, and the Houston Texans are 1-1. It seems like this could be one of those trap Thursday night games where it might not, come. The outcome might not be what we all think, because, if you look at it on paper, it looks like the Carolina Panthers would blow out the Houston Texans tonight. But that's why they play the games, and those Thursday games always seem to trip up the good teams more often than not. So we'll see what's going on. Is there any word on Scott? He's gone? All right. So we're looking at the there's a lot of interesting developments in the NFL. I think one of the biggest stories is the dearth of undefeated teams. Right now in the AFC, there's only 2 teams that are 2-0, which is the Oakland Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos, which is not not who you would think would be 2-0 at this point, especially coming out of the AFC. The New York Jets are 0-2. And then we have the AFC North, which is everyone's at 1-1, the most balanced division out there. And that's going to be interesting as it plays out throughout the season, because everybody gets to play each other 6 times out of the year. So there seems to be a lot of equality and balance there. It seems like 4 teams that are really, really good, and if they get the certain amount of breaks, they'll be able to. They all have the playoff potential, even with the Cincinnati Bengals, because they have the Joe Burrow. It looks like he's the real deal, as being the first round, the first overall pick in the draft a couple years ago. And we have the AFC South, where the Houston Texans and Tennessee Titans are both 1-1, and the Jaguars and Colts are 0-2. And pretty impressive how the Tennessee Titans are 1-1, since they've been really the only team that's dealt with ravaging COVID-19 issues early on in the season. They were able to pull out a win last week, though, which is pretty impressive on their part. And then we have Hey, Scott, you over there?
Yep, I'm back. Sorry, my computer completely froze on me. It happens.
It's all good. So let's just talk for a little bit. So the New York Mets, how are you feeling about them?
No different than when we addressed it a couple weeks ago when the slide started. When not started, but when it looked like the season was just about over. I think that they're probably about 80% there to compete, and I got to be optimistic about the owner and what he's going to spend in the offseason. So I think they'll fill in some blanks. I think the manager's gone. We were talking about whether or not Boone may or may not be gone. Ross, done deal. I mean, he's absolutely probably the worst manager I've ever seen in the Mets, and I've seen 40 years of terrible managers of the Mets. So, he's gone, and I think that we need a closer and a couple of middlemen. Beyond that, a couple other blanks to fill in, but I think Uncle Stevie's going to open the checkbook again, and I'm excited about the offseason there.
So, do you think, in your opinion, are the New York Mets more attractive or less attractive to free agents than they were a year ago today?
I think they're definitely more attractive, and I think guys like Lindor and Baez are the reason why they'll help. They can help sweet talk some guys. I know that they still have to re-sign Baez, and Lindor's the big one right there. And guys like Pete Alonso, I think I think they'll be attractive. They've always been in the Yankees' shadow of free agencies, but at least now that they've got the money and the contracts to compete there, and I think they've got enough big names that will help attract other big names, and I'm obviously the owner, who actually wants the team to win and is going to pay for that. Will help attract big name free agents as well. So I don't think they'll have any problems. Finding those free agent pieces that they need.
Yeah, I'm gonna say what I was saying for the past couple of weeks. The Mets are trying to put themselves in a better position. I think there was a little bit of a hiccup with the whole salute to the fan thing that didn't go over too well in New York media and fans alike. But I think the one question is gonna be, all right, so Steve Cohen definitely wants to build a winner. He definitely has the money to do it. He's been vocal about, spending whatever it takes, pretty much like Dodger money to get, to get a winner in New York, specifically in Queens. But the question is going to be, are these people going to sign? Are the big name free agents, have they done enough to attract them into New York? I'm going to say yes, but at the same time, I don't know. It could definitely go either way, because it's going to be either do you want to be a part of the solution and take the money, or do you want to go elsewhere? Because baseball has other teams that have money that they can go other places and be a part of a winner and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I was surprised that the offseason went by last year, because all the talk like Cohen was swinging his big stick and saying like, come over here, and then they just couldn't sign they couldn't sign all the free agents that they ended up getting, and then they end up acquiring by trade Lindor and Baez, and then they locked up Lindor, and theoretically they should be able to lock up Baez, but is it going to be enough? That's a big question.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be enough to be the competitor that they want to be, but I think it will be enough to make the team definitely attractive to free agents. And you mentioned the whole thumbs down and the booing incident and whatnot. And actually, Lindor had a good comment today, and I'm looking at it right now. I don't know if this is the entire quote, but it says, "Oh, if I would have played a little bit better, I know we could have won at least 5 to 7 more games, which we would be fighting for first place right now." So that's a great comment for him to make, especially in New York. And especially after what happened with the thumbs down, it's like, he's accepting the blame. That's huge, especially in New York to do for a high-priced free agent, because a lot of these high-priced free agents, in every sport really, sign those ridiculous contracts, and a lot of them don't care, or at least don't make it evident that they care. But that's a nice gesture for him. Doesn't help us not make the playoffs, but it's a nice gesture, I think, from Lindor, especially with the contract he signed.
Yeah, I think Francisco Lindor, I'm not sure if he's the actual face of New York, but I also don't think he's really built that way. I think he's more, I think his, personality-wise and the way he goes about his business, I think he's better off, being like the number 2 or 3, like, big superstar option. I think, it's also his first year where he's kind of going through all of this. There's one thing to do it in Cleveland, and there's one thing to do it in New York. And I think,
right.
You go through a losing season in Cleveland, people don't really notice that much. And then, you go through in New York, and it's magnified so much. And, with the whole booing incidents and things like that, I think it was a really tough learning experience for him as he's going through the progressions. And, you can't really blame a guy because, if they're going to give him $300 million, it's not, it's not going to be like, oh, well, nah, I think I'm more worth, 180. I don't really think I'm worth 300.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to take the money. And that's what he's fought for, potential-wise. But, with the big money and the big contract, it's not only about the performance on the field. It's also the extra stuff. It's pretty much everything that New York wants from a player who's making that much and at that stature and magnitude. So I think it's been real tough for him. And, hopefully he can grow from all of this too, and then not have situations like what we saw, because he's locked in for like another 9 years at this point. So and nobody's going to take that contract. So
yeah, all the more reason why his comments today were that much better. Because of the money, because of the New York, because of the booing incident. That was a peace offering to the Mets fans and the New York media right there, and I absolutely respect that.
Yeah,
what he said today.
Definitely gonna take a while to rebuild that, but hopefully in the offseason they can add on to what they've already built at this point. I think they're better off than they were last year at this point, but it's all about, are they gonna come? Did they build enough for them, for the big free agents to come? And,
well, that's
what's up?
I was going to say, well, that's the beauty of. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's the beauty of baseball, is that with no salary cap, and when you do finally have an owner that's writing blank checks, you can go from last place to World Series in literally one off season. So that's where I'm most optimistic. As we're seeing with the Rangers, can't do it in hockey, can't do it in football. But you can do it in baseball. And that's why, I think if this is the core of the team that will compete for a World Series, I think it's going to be a sooner than later, to fill in the blanks and reveal itself. Otherwise, they'll realize that what they have doesn't work, and start again. But I think this is the offseason. This is not a 2, 3, 4 year plan. This is the offseason. They have to put a team on the field that will compete for a World Series next year.
Absolutely. But there's also the field aspect where, you can try to overreach and overspend on a guy who's not all that great, and then he ends up not being all that great, and then you're in the
Bobby Bonilla.
stuff like that. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways it can go, but it'll be definitely an interesting offseason in that part of New York, possibly both parts of New York, but definitely in Queens. There's going to be a lot of fireworks cracking all over the place. So we'll lastly touch on the San Diego Padres. We covered them while you were disconnected there for a second. Your rally cry guys, very, very disappointing. They're 76 and 75 right now, 22 games 22 and a half games behind the division leading Giants, and then they are 6 games out of the wild card spot.
Yeah, that was disappointing. I remember a few weeks ago when I looked at their schedule and I said, I think my exact words were, if they make the playoffs, they deserve to make the playoffs. Especially, when they had all these games with the Dodgers and Giants coming up. Well, I'm looking at it right now, 2-12 against the Dodgers and Giants, along with throwing a swept by St. Louis. Well, I said if they made it, they deserve to be there. They don't deserve to be there, clearly. Yeah. So that was disappointing because, I adopted them, but I just kicked them out.
I'd say the two. So looking at it, I'd say the two biggest disappointments in the MLB this season would be the San Diego Padres, number one, because of the heavy expectations and what they've built over the past 2 seasons, and pretty much having a lame duck season. And then the New York Yankees are arguably the second biggest disappointment right now, depending on if they actually do make the playoffs. But even the fact that they're trying to scratch their way in right now, as opposed to being a couple of games up in the division, or possibly having the division clinched by now, which was the biggest expectation for that New York team. They are not having that happen right now. And then the biggest surprise in a positive way is the San Francisco Giants just dominating all of baseball and being 1 win away from 100 wins today. Any agreements?
Yeah.
There?
Oh, I didn't know if Phil was commenting. No, I'm good. I got you.
All right. So we'll officially switch over to football now. So early season in the AFC, there's only 2 teams that are 2-0 right now: the Raiders and Denver, which is pretty shocking at that point, considering all the teams that are in the AFC West. I mean, the AFC in general. So we'll go through the divisions real quick. We touched on it before. The AFC East, everyone's at 1-1 except for the New York Jets, who are 0-2. And then the NFC North, everybody's at 1-1. Sorry, the AFC North, everybody's at 1-1, which is very balanced and Thanos-like. Then we have the AFC South, where the Texans and Titans are both 1-1, and the Jaguars and Colts are 0-2. And in the AFC West, the aforementioned Raiders and Denver 2-0, and then the Chiefs and the Chargers are both 1-1. Thoughts on anybody in particular here?
I think the Raiders and Ravens both stick out because the Raiders weren't supposed to beat the Ravens, and they did. And then in the big shocker, you had last week, Ravens weren't supposed, they turned it around. They weren't supposed to beat the Chiefs, and they did. I know the Chiefs had some major injuries there, O-line, I believe, some defense out. And they took advantage of that. It was a great comeback late. They were down in that game late. So I think the Ravens were a big shock. I think the Jets and Giants both being 0-2, not the biggest shock these days. I think you guys, at least the Jets, have more of an excuse than the Giants do. You got a brand new quarterback. He's already shown last week, not the greatest, but the first week, he's shown he can be a star if they give him the pieces. Clearly, we're learning that with Sam Darnold as well. He looks like he might have the potential to compete for an MVP. But so you guys, there's not a lot going on your team. That's not, I'm not talking crap. That's just reality. You got a lot of blanks to fill in. The Giants were supposed to have filled in those blanks. Now, yes, 0-2, 2007, they won a Super Bowl. That being said, you know what? And the NFC East apparently is not going to be any stronger than it's been in recent years. So the Giants are 1 game out of first. It is what it is. They look decent at least last week. Daniel Jones, that's the biggest question mark. When you got a quarterback like that, still, what's his 3rd year, I think. We're still asking ourselves, is this the guy? And I gave him a pass up until this year because he didn't have an offensive line. He didn't have weapons. Now he's got those. Not the greatest offensive line, but it's better. And last week he actually looked pretty good and showed some shades of what we hope he can be. That being said, they're still 0-2, and this is the game right here. Yeah, you cannot go 0-3, but they're playing a miserable Falcons team at home. So we're going to find out this week if the Giants' season is over 3 games in or not. And as for the Jets, you can obviously add better insight than I can, but I think they're just too young, and there's just not enough pieces there to really compete for anything, even though you might have the most winnable AFC East you've seen in a long, long time. I think the Jets are still a couple years away, and clearly I think the Giants are probably at least a year or 2 away as well.
Well, I'll talk about the Jets since I'm a fan of them. I follow them closely. The most disappointing part of getting rid of Sam Darnold for Wilson is the fact that they went through the lumps of the rookie quarterback and everything else, like from Sam Darnold the past 2 seasons, and then like the 3rd season, which is the show me season, really where it's like the make or break. Is he going to be a stud or not kind of year to fully show what he's all about. The Jets punted that year away, and they went through the same exact thing again. So they have to go through another 2 or 3 years of a quarterback who's going through the motions and trying to get his footing and getting the experience in order to be as good as he's going to be. So it's basically they're just doing a do-over from what they've already done, instead of having a Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, he's in a much better situation, a much better overall team, and it's showing because it's 2-0, and it looks like all signs are pointing to a 3-0 start tonight, unless they really have a really backwards game against the Houston Texans, who are starting a rookie quarterback today because Tyrod Taylor is out. So it's a very it's a tough situation, and it's disappointing because you just went through all of those lumps, and then you get to the point where you're about to get to the fruits of your labor and all that sacrificing of different seasons, and ended up costing a head coaching job, even though Adam Gase was on his way out anyway, probably. But theoretically, you go through, and there's different people getting replaced because you're developing this process, and right when you're about to get to the good part is where you punted that away, and then you end up, trying to go through the same process again. So it's very tough being a Jets fan, and then you have like a home opener and then 4 interception game is just like, geez, it's very, very tough to go through at that point. But then as far as the Giants go, what was that stat? You said they started, what was it, 2007? They were 0-2, and then they made they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and they were very, very close to going 0-3. They were playing the Redskins, and the Redskins had like a 1st and goal or something in goal, and Giants had a huge 4-down goal line stance to win that game, to just barely hang on. And then they were 10-6. They weren't world beaters, but figure 0-2, so they finished 10-4. And then the historic win over the undefeated Patriots. So, 0-2 does not end your season, especially when you're in a division like the NFC East is looking yet again. But they showed improvement anyway. They showed improvement from game 1 to game 2.
But the funny aspect is the 0-2 start, because they have the past 6 out of the past 7 years they started out 0-2. So this is like, they started off 0-2 is almost like a yearly thing, and then hearing that they won the Super Bowl when they were 0-2 is also a yearly thing. But I think as far as the Giants go, they basically just mismanaged that game last week. They theoretically should be 1-1 at this point. So as far as building towards a win at least, or even being in the weak division that they're in, I'd say they definitely have some more promise left in this season. Whereas the New York Jets, the division just has a bunch of studs in it, because Buffalo and Miami is, they're pretty much going to give the New England Patriots revenge for all, more than a decade of dominance, and they're just going to beat them down every chance they get. And they look like 2 formidable teams there, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And then you have Josh Allen from the the Buffalo Bills, who's a lot of people are picking them as either a sleeper Super Bowl contender or an actual Super Bowl contender, whatever way you want to look at it. There's a lot of promise coming out of that division. As far as the NFC East, where everyone is 1-1 except for the Giants, who are 0-2. There's a lot of opportunity in that division for sure.
Yeah, and real quick, when you were talking about the Jets, I wanted to second what you said about they didn't really give Sam Darnold a chance, and it's like they never wanted to, because Adam Gase was awful, and he shouldn't have been his coach as long as he was, and when you said that third year that put up or show me what you got year. They ripped the team apart, but yet kept the coach on. So I don't understand what they were doing there. So yeah, Sam Darnold did not get a fair shake at all. And hopefully, and I like this new coach that you guys have. I think he's the Giants and Jets both have young. Because that's the new trend in the NFL the last almost decade is remember I grew up in the 80s and 90s, you could never find a coach under the age of 55. Now younger coaches is the way you go, young, full of energy, they know the game, they know the present game. So I think you guys got a great coach there, and I think Zach Wilson's definitely going to get whether or not he turns out to be the real deal or just the latest in the string of Jets, whatever quarterbacks, at least he'll get a fair shot. I think, he doesn't have the team this year, but he will. Well, hopefully, for your sake, he will, but at least he's got a good coach finally to get him into the league.
Yeah, I think overall, the youth movement, especially, I think in the NFL is probably the worst. Where, let's look at this season where you have the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. They go 1-2 in the draft, and they're starting 1-2. And they're starting the first week, second week. They're going to be in there pretty much the whole season, taking their lumps and all that. And then, you look at, years ago where a quarterback will be drafted number one. We'll take a Carson Palmer, comes to mind real quick, where he ended up, holding the clipboard the first season, and then they end up throwing him in there. Even Eli Manning, who was drafted number one, he was holding the clipboard for around half the season from Kurt Warner until they ended up making the switch there. Now there's just no time, and it's just, I feel like the rookie quarterbacks that have done well, the few that have done well in this situation have hurt, because now the expectation is that every rookie quarterback and every rookie at every position is supposed to come in and dominate from day one. It's just not realistic. There's a lot of learning curves, there's a lot of experience that goes through, and then it also goes into the head coaches, because the head coaches, they're that's the trendy thing to do, is to get the younger guys, the hipper guys, and then the whole point of why experienced coaches and older coaches were looked at a lot back then as being better options, because they have more experience, because they've been through more situations, because they'll be able to think on their feet more and have this time management. And a lot of these rookie head coaches, or head coaches that are under 40, a lot of them fail more than they succeed, and but it's the few that have broken through, that have done well. That's the example, and that's what everybody wants, but it actually fails more than it works.
Yeah, I could go either way with the rookie quarterback, and that's a great example is, Eli Manning learning from Kurt Warner for half a year. And I think the only reason he came in that year at all is because the Giants were so bad that year. So they just did it as a change. But at least he had half the season, and Kurt Warner was still there. So he had the entire season to learn from, a legend like that. I mean, even, Steve Young sat behind Joe Montana for years. So I could go either way with, throw the kid to the wolves, let them learn, let them get all that rookie garbage out of the way. I'm okay with that, but you at least have to have, if you're going to make them start, you got to at least have, and if you do have that younger coach, at least have your backup, some 30-something or late 20s has been or whatnot, some experienced quarterback, so we can at least work with that other quarterback. even if he's going to be the one starting, at least let him get the pointers and just learn from that guy on and off the field. So I think that's the one mistake the Jets have done is they haven't you have a first year younger coach, so he's not going to get the experience and the pointers there, but he does not even have, an experienced quarterback to learn from. So that is asking a lot. And you hit it right on the head when you said like the expectations are unrealistic. To expect him to be a stud off the bat, 4 interceptions in that, last week. Well, yeah, that's going to happen. There's no need to throw in the towel on this guy after 2 games when you're going to throw him to the wolves and you don't have anybody he can lean on. That's going to happen. So they definitely. I think the Jets should do something about picking up some kind of experienced quarterback to mentor him. That's the word I was looking for. As at least the backup. If not, let the guys start. Let a game or so just to let Zach Wilson watch another quarterback during an actual NFL game, whatever the case. They got to do something to help him out there. If you want this guy to be the mold breaker in that string of Jets high draft pick quarterbacks,
or have the patience for this best case scenario is pretty much 3 years of being good, but it's really like a 3 to 6 year window. And no fan base in the NHL in the NFL has the patience to potentially wait 5 or 6 years for anything. So I mean, yeah, it's a really big toss up on how everything's gonna go there. So we have a couple minutes left on the show. We just want to go through the rest of the NFC. So the NFC West, the power division is the NFC West with the 49ers, the Rams, and the Cardinals all 2-0, and the Seattle Seahawks are 1-1. The NFC South, we have the Bucks and the aforementioned the Carolina Panthers. They are 2-0. The Saints are 1-1, and the Falcons are 0-2. And in the NFC North, the Packers and Bears are 1-1, and the Lions and Vikings are both 0-2. Any thoughts? Any surprises that go over there?
I honestly, I don't follow football much in the off season. So as far as like who is expected to be good and whatnot, I don't really know other than, I know the expectations for my team, and obviously, Tampa Bay is shooting for 19-0. So, but beyond that, I don't, really know. So I did not expect the right now, it's only 2 games. Who knows? I mean, look at Pittsburgh last year. They were 11-0 and they just completely fell apart. So, I don't mind Arizona. And it's good to see them and the Rams back because, the Rams have on kind of under one of those teams that's been always there, but kind of under the radar. Good to see Carolina back because, with a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you don't want to see him wasted. With what he puts up, literally every week in, week out. You don't want to see a guy like that wasted. So they moved on from the Cam Newton era and went with Sam Darnold, and it's clearly a good fit. So good for them.
Yeah, the other teams look like geniuses in the early going, making the trade with Matthew Stafford coming in from the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff going back into the Lions, and the Lions are 0-2 and the Rams are 2-0. Seems like the world is the same, even though the two switched over. And then the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. It looks like they found their quarterback of the future, and that's as far as they've always been deep in wide receiver with Larry Fitzgerald, and now with DeAndre Hopkins pretty much taking over the torch. It seems like whatever quarterback they have, they always just have great wide receivers. They always have that lateral passing game going through, and they're looking pretty good there. This division, it'll be tough when everybody's facing each other. That's when the records will start evening out a little bit. But I think that's easily the strongest division in football from top to bottom. And then the Carolina Panthers, they're doing really well. I think they're surprising some people, but not really. There was a reason why Sam Darnold was drafted as high as he was. And, Robbie Anderson was a 1,000-yard receiver for the New York Jets, and now he's looking primed to be a 1,000-yard receiver again for the Carolina Panthers. So, there's a lot of good stuff there. And, it looks like a two-team race because the Saints, we're losing Drew Brees, and the Falcons are going to be the Falcons, and they always seem to just disappoint no matter what the mathematics show. So that'll be a two-team race there between the Bucs and the Panthers all season long.
Yeah, and what's interesting? The NFC North. I think my prediction is you're looking at basically an NFC East type of NFC North. Yeah. I don't. The Packers are usually far and away the best team there. They might be, but they are not the Packers. In the Aaron Rodgers era that we're used to. I'm looking here in 2 games, they're 1-1. 38 points they scored, 55 they let up. So everybody has let up more points than they've scored. Minnesota's 0-2, and they've outscored Green Bay by 19 points. So the Bears are the Bears, the Lions, of course, are the Lions. So I think Minnesota being 0-2, and they haven't been the same in a few years. They haven't been the same since they missed that. That 10-yard field goal or whatever it was in the playoffs. I don't think they've recovered from that. So, I hope the NFC North gets as much negativity as the NFC East gets for being a terrible division, because I think that's what you're looking at here this year with them.
Possible. Well, the Chicago Bears 2 weeks ago, I said they were my surprise pick to take the division. So I'm waiting to see how they progress throughout the whole season. I don't think there's really much logic to it, but there's a lot of mislogic going on in that division to begin with. So definitely crazy enough to happen. All right, so that does it for our show for this week. Thank you very much, Maryland Man, for stopping by.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure.
All right, we'll be back next week.